Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 124, TidyX screencast where we explain how our code works. My name's Ellis Hughes.
And my name's Patrick Ward. And today we're going to jump into an issue that we'll talk about that a colleague of mine asked about combining multiple conditions. Before we do that, just a friendly reminder, if you enjoy the work that we're doing, we do have a Patreon page and we appreciate any contribution that you'd like to make. And additionally, as always, on the YouTube channel, please remember to like and subscribe and give us a comment or give us a question or give us some ideas on things that you might like to see in future episodes.
Yep, it gets the algorithm like sharing our episodes so other people can find us and hopefully we can help them too. The more activity that we get on this page and on the videos, the more that it'll help grow it. So really appreciate everybody and all the support that we've received so far. So
Yeah,
let's get into episode 124 before we waffle for too long.
yeah, totally.
All right.
So, yeah, combining multiple conditions. So this was a question that a colleague had, and they were working with a problem where they said, "I've got this one column that describes something, and what I want to do is I want to put another column in that basically groups that something into certain groups." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And they're like, "But I'm using case when, and I'm trying to use case when or if else. And the problem I'm running into is there are times when when the object that I'm observing can be in multiple groups. So I was thinking if I use case when or if else, how do I get it to know that, oh, this thing is in this other group as well? Can I just append like a sort of like comma separated string and where it just drops in that new group?" And I was like, yeah, that's kind of a cool problem to solve. And why don't we solve it on air? So here we are.
Right here. We're gonna go
Yeah.
through that right now, and this is just one example. If you come up with a so the way we're gonna solve it is just one way to solve it, of course, and it's also going to be based on the specific problem that we're trying to solve. So if you have another scenario where you're trying to combine multiple conditions together, let us know.
Yeah.
Give us a data set if you can, and we'd love to work through that and show you additional ways that you can solve look at approaching this problem because like we said we can solve the problem at hand and we could think that it's kind of a general solution, but the more different scenarios that we can see, the more different ways that we can make suggestions.
Totally.
So
Totally.
let's start off with this. So we're going to load a library tidyverse for all our data manipulation needs. That's the only library we're going to need today because those are the only functions we need. We're going to construct an example data set that we have. Like we said, this is like the simplest case of combining multiple conditions, which is why we're asking to see additional ones here, where we've got a bunch of different fruits, right? We've got apple, pear, kiwi, banana, grape, cherry, orange, right? And we're gonna just throw it into a vector, into a tibble. Tibble is going to be an object D. It's going to have a column for fruit. And it's going to have those 7 different fruits there. But that isn't the data set that we want to be creating here. What we actually want to do is have this, have this string here the second column here, where we're combining which season that it might be a good fruit to have. I'm assuming that's what that's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's
So
literally something I just made up. So I don't even know if those are
it's
the
Patrick's
appropriate
favorite
seasons.
fruits.
Yeah,
Patrick's
yeah,
favorite
that's it.
fruits based on the season.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah,
during winter, summer, and spring, you could find Patrick eating apples all the time.
that's right. That's right.
So you can see here that this is a unique combination of a couple different techniques because you have a couple different conditions you're going to have to meet. For example, apple has winter, summer, spring. Pear only has summer. Banana has winter, summer. So there's like combinations of different things, but then we're also combining it into a single string.
Yeah.
And so
And the key here is we could solve this by literally doing like an if else and saying if the fruit equals apple, deposit in the column fruit season, winter, summer, spring, if it equals the issue that we had was, if you have like 20 conditions, you don't want to do that for all those. And if you have more than 20 conditions, or maybe even more than 10 conditions, it might be easier just to write like a small table that's a key and then just join to that. But once I get past like four conditions, I don't really want to sit there and type anymore. So we're going to solve this in a sort of iterative way.
Mm-hmm. So let's go through and discuss case ones and how they work. Patrick, do you want to take us through this one first?
Yeah, so this was what my colleague was trying to do, and so he had his D data set, and he was basically mutating in this new column that was called fruit season, and he was saying, okay, how do I get this to basically concatenate winter, summer, spring for Apple, for example? When you run this, the problem you run into is that case when doesn't know that Apple is going to have multiple cases. So it takes the first observation that it sees. So it's going to go through and it's going to say, oh, cool, Apple, winter. Anywhere else it sees Apple, for example, if it corresponds to summer or spring, it doesn't even care about that. It's found a condition that matches, and it's going to be like, hey, let's roll with that. This makes total sense. And so if we run this, you'll see that we'll get an output that does not look like the Tibble that we're interested in. Each of the observations has one season, and that season is the first observation that we saw.
And this is not an uncommon sort of situation for you to come across where you might have um, like you have cascading options that you want to fulfill, but you want the earliest one to be like the earliest one in your list of things. If it hits that one first, you're set, you're done. Don't worry about going to the rest of them. So this
Right.
is like the most common way that somebody might use in a case one, which is why it behaves this way. Is
Totally.
it's unlikely that you'd want to have it meet this condition and this condition and this condition and then return some sort of combination of the three of them. More
Yeah.
than likely, like the situations that I might see is you have like numbers where you say if number is greater than 10, do this. But then if it's greater than 5, do this. And then if it's greater than 1, do this. And then if it's less than 1, do this other thing. And so you have a cascading options as you go. And they're going more and more general as they
That's
go.
right. Yeah. So case when won't work. And his next option was like, well, maybe if case when won't work, maybe if else will work. Ellis, do you want to walk through what happens when we try this with if else?
Sure thing. So the way if else works is you have your if else function here. You have the first argument is a true or false. It was supposed to return true or false situation, and then the next argument is okay. If this first entry is true, return this. If it's false, return the next one. So it's actually like if you have these multiple if else statements, it actually kind of behaves very similarly to a case when, because it's going to once it hits this first true situation, it's not going to continue down. It's not going to go, oh, what else might be true in this situation?
Mhm.
And so what's happening here is it's met this first case of, well, the fruit is an apple and you're saying winter. Cool, done, not moving forward. If it's a pear, it's going to see this situation here and to say, well, it's not in this vector of apple, orange, banana, so it's not winter. So it's going to go on to the next case because the second argument in an if else statement is when it returns false. And it's going to go to the second if else statement because that's the second argument. The way that these are structured is they're nested. And so it also becomes a little bit difficult to read. And so now it's going down to the second if else where you're saying, okay, well, if the fruit is in pear, kiwi, grape, apple, returns summer if it's true. And because the fruit this time is pear, it returns true. So therefore, it's going to return summer. But it doesn't, once again, it doesn't allow you to combine multiple things together. And so this is going to basically return to you the same answer as you had with the if else or with the case when. So we can run
Mhm.
this and demonstrate to you that indeed I am not lying to you. It is identical to
Bummer.
the case when. So bummeroony, that did
Okay.
not work as well.
So neither of those solved the problem. So he was like, what do you think I could do? And this is the example I came up with. And then Ellis came up with two other examples that solve it in a similar way. And then one that solves it in a similar way. And then one that solves it in a totally different way. But either of the three will get you to where you want to go. Remember, this is a very simple example that I constructed here. If you have something more complex, like and subscribe and just drop that example on the YouTube on that YouTube page, and we'll try and answer it in our next episode. So if there's something that's more complex or you're hung up with, let us know. So the way that I solved this was that I have my D data set, and I have our mutate in our this basically this first case when that says if the fruit equals apple, orange, or banana, call it winter. And then what I did was for each of the subsequent potential seasons, I just create a new column. So it's fruit season one. Then I have a mutate for fruit season two, which is my second list of conditions. And then I have a mutate for fruit season three, which is my third list of conditions. So clearly, I guess I don't eat fruits in the fall if this is representing. So I'm currently suffering from scurvy until the month of December. So, um, those are our three conditions. And so now if we were to just run that, so basically lines 52 to 63, we've got this longer column that says, okay, cool. We have some conditions that are met. Otherwise, we're just plunking in some NAs as placeholders. And so now what we want to do is wrap a bow on this and get it to a single column. And so what we do is we next do a mutate that says, hey, take those three columns that we just built and paste them together and separate them by a comma, because that's what he was trying to do, was get this final string. And then what we're left with is those ugly NAs. They get held into the comma separated string. And so we just want to dump those out. So I'm just going to do a quick string replace anytime it sees an NA with a comma and a space after it, or anytime it sees a comma with a space NA, to remove it whenever it's on the bookends of the string. Just replace it with a blank, get rid of it. And then those other three, the three columns that we had to identify our conditions, they become useless. So I'm going to get rid of those. And what we're going to be left with is the data set that he was trying to obtain that met the conditions of a comma separated string for each of the times apple was true or banana was true or grape was true.
Mm-hmm. And this works. The only, I guess, downside you could say is that because you have these growing if-else statements, I mean, once these are in here, then it's just a matter of, okay, well, Patrick, what about the fall? Do you eat fruit in the fall? I think you do.
Sure.
You're a pretty healthy person. So let's say in the fall,
yeah,
you do have cherries, or no,
yeah,
apples are in season for sure. You eat apples all year.
yeah.
But you
And
don't
maybe
eat bananas.
kiwis, something. Yeah,
But you have
exactly.
kiwis in the fall. The summer and
Yeah,
fall are when you have your kiwis.
yeah.
And so you just add that in, and it's just like it helps you grow it out. You do, unfortunately, then have to, add a fruit season 4 here. You do add fruit season 4 down here. Da, da,
And
da.
remove it at the bottom.
I mean, you could write it so that it used tidy select statements as well. So it's a matches or starts with fruit underscore season, then and slash D plus. That way it can match to any number
Digits,
of
yeah.
potential fruits seasons.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's only 4 as far as I'm aware, but I'm also not a biologist or a farmer. But
Right.
so these can kind of grow out that way, but you still have to keep on adding and kind of adjusting every single time you do this.
Right.
Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but I have a similar solution as well. We do these case ones, the same case ones that he had before. But rather than doing just a paste to combine them all together first, and then kind of after the fact, remove my NAs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this row wise, because I'm assuming that my row is independent of each other. And so this is what this row wise function does. And now when I do a mutate or I do a summarize in the next step, it's only going to be creating, it's going to be calculating it by the row. So it's kind of like row wise is essentially a group by call in my head. I don't know functionally under the hood, but in my head, row wise is essentially a group by, but it's grouping by every single row. And each row is an independent group. And so now I'm going to throw it into a summarize. I'm going to return fruit because I still want to have that information. But now I'm going to, when I calculate my fruit season, what I'm going to do is I'm going to concatenate with the C function, fruit seasons 1 through 3. And so it's going to combine winter, spring, the either winter or an A, summer or an A, and spring or an A into each one of these positions. And then I'm going to call a set diff. So what a set diff is it finds the set difference between this first string that I'm passing and the second string that I'm passing. And it keeps only the values that are in this first string that aren't in the second string, or in the second vector entry. And so in this situation, the second entry I have into my set diff is NA. So it's going to drop any cases of a NA from my vector here. I then pass it into a paste where I have the argument collapse is the comma with a space after it. Excuse me, our video feed is covering that, a comma with the space after it. And so now it's going to collapse all the entries together for us. And it's smart enough to recognize if there's only one entry, don't enter a comma space, but if there's two or more, drop in a comma space between each one of them. And so we run that, we get the same answer as as we wanted to. We have for apple, we have winter, summer, spring. For pear and kiwi, you only have summer. For banana, we have winter and spring. And so it combines them together like that. And so that's one way to do this. The other way is, again, not ideal, but it makes it maybe potentially a little bit easier for you to build out your if statements here, where we're going to take the D argument again, but rather than throwing these mutates before to construct fruit season columns, we're going to do it all together in one. So there's a little bit of kind of hucking it at the wall, and like you don't have a way to double check that everything is actually behaving the way you want to. And so you may like the prior way because you can stop your pipe before you do the pasting or the row-wise summarizing to double check and visually verify that the values are indeed what you're expecting to have. But what you can do here is this is taking advantage of a situation where an if-else statement inside of a C statement. So it's going to check if the fruit is apple. So I guess let me step back for a second here. So we're going to say D, and we're going to do for every row, we're going to do this mutation here. If the fruit is an apple, orange, banana, return winter. If the fruit is pear, kiwi, grape, apple, return summer. If fruit is cherry, apple, grape, banana, return spring. The difference is this is an if, not an if-else. So it's going to evaluate each situation here independently. They're not nested together, so it doesn't stop once it finds a true statement. But the next piece is I'm putting these inside of a C. And so because of this, if this evaluates to be true, it's going to return winter. But if the if statement inside of the C doesn't return a value, it actually basically becomes a null value. And so by putting this in C, a C function or a concatenation function, if you put null in there, does nothing. It returns a null. But if you have a null combined with a real value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it drops the null for you. So now you don't have to have a NA or null handling because C handles it for you. Mm-hmm. And so now we can pass this into the paste with a collapse as well. And we're going to get the same sort of situation back out here. And that's kind of how you can do this. So you can, if you want to have some error checking, which is never a bad thing, build it out this way, and you can use some tidy select to be grabbing out columns. But you can also equally kind of hack it together a little bit.
Yeah. So that's cool. That's a little bit of multiple conditions. Again, super simple example. If you have something that's more complex that you're trying to work on, or you have other conditions that sort of have to be met along the way as you're iteratively doing this, like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, drop a comment in there. And if you can share an example, or you can email us even just like a fake tiny data set of the example of what you're working with and what you'd like it to look like, just like we did at the top where we built an example of what we'd like it to look like, so we know what we're working towards. We can crank away on that and maybe make it an episode.
Yeah. So with that, I guess we're gonna end episode 124, multiple conditions. Thank you all as always for joining. My name's Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Moore. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick and at tidy_explained. is where we are both on Twitter. So you can hit us up there. Tidy.explained@gmail.com. If you want to email us questions, email us a data set and some examples of things that you're working on that you're stuck with. Of course, the YouTube channel, always like and subscribe, drop some comments in the bottom below, share with your friends. And we do have a Patreon page. We're always grateful for anything that you share. If you feel like, we've positively impacted your work in R and your learning in R, and you want to donate, that'd be a great place to do it.
All right. Thank you all so much. Keep on exploring your world.